It's definitely been a little while since we've been able to give you a roundup. There's been a heap happening across the city and, of course, all things real estate, Nato. We've had an opportunity, again, the last few weeks to hear from a lot of people that we're working with. And, you know, what have we been able to find?
Oh, there's certainly a lot of things that are on the agenda. So I think the big one, which is the most obvious, is interest rates. There's a lot of discussion around the number of increases we've had and how that's impacting people's situations. But within that, what is really interesting, so I can even share my situation. There's a lot of discussion around fixed interest rate terms expiring and then those people moving to your current variable rate and how significant the change will be. So just this week, I received my letter. I was on a fixed rate of, believe this, 1.89%.
Yeah, no, you got that done pretty well.
Just very lucky to hit the bottom of the market when we locked that in 3 years ago. We have now been moved. I just had a look at our current interest rate is now 5.57%. That is a significant change, and the repayments in line with that mean that we do have to make some changes to where that money's coming from.
Yeah, no, it is significant, and even playing around on some calculators again as early as last night, I'm seeing intro rates at 589 just for owner-occupier and investment money in the resi market. So it goes without saying that we wouldn't be surprised to hear that some of those changes need to be made just on the weekly budget. So I even heard my wife have a little bit of a whinge about the grocery bill last week. So that hasn't happened for a while as well.
And that's also in behind a lot of reasons why we're now getting a lot of our investment owners asking us in regards to increasing rents. They're certainly not doing it for the sole purpose of increasing their wealth. They're actually now faced with significant changes in the holding costs of those properties. So all the services associated with holding a property are up, even your maintenance, you know, your pest control and doing all those little bits and pieces to ensure you've got a quality investment property to put into the rental market. Now it's costing a lot more to have that. So that's impacting your rents, as are the interest rates. And on the back of interest rates, what we're suggesting is that get ahead of the game. If you think you're going to be faced with a change, then start investigating your options now, because we're actually seeing some people take out their new loans back over 30 years. They're looking at different avenues. So certainly be talking to your brokers about what you can do and get yourself ahead of the game, because I can tell you personally, to go from 1.89 to 5.57, that's a significant shift.
And one of the important factors that's often overlooked in these scenarios, again with these calls from a lot of the owners that we're working with on the property management side, is really need to be, and we're welcoming the opportunity to sit down with us. It's just about finding that fine balance as well, because when the screws are coming on from the property ownership point of view, it is also putting the stress on the household, so the tenants' ability to pay as well. So whilst we want to work in that space to make sure that we are maximising that rental achievement for you in what is still a relatively strong market for great property, what we're also very mindful of is not putting you in a position with your existing tenant where we are squeezing that blood out of the stone, because what that can adversely lead to is late rent payments. So if we get that issue where we're running into a scenario constantly across the whole of the city where people are squeezed out and rent arrears begins to build, well, that becomes a completely larger challenge in its own right. So a lot of factors to consider, and if you're in that space and you'd love to reach out to have a more detailed and specific conversation, by all means, give me the call.
Absolutely. So just to finish off with interest rates, interesting set of stats. We had a broker reach out to us and gave us a map of what the changing interest rates have meant for borrowers, and more importantly, in capacity, because this will have a direct impact on what's happening with house prices, which is another big question people are asking. So what we're seeing is if you were in April 2022, if you're a borrower that was approved for $500,000, as of March this year, that $500,000 approval had been reduced to $324,150. Now, we've had 2 interest rate rises since then, so that will have changed again. But also interesting, if you were looking at building a brand new home last year or investing somewhere in the order of $1 million and you were approved at that level, your borrowing capacity has now been reduced to 648 plus the 2 most recent increases. So that is a significant shift in borrowing capacity. and that's having a direct impact on prices.
Yep.
Because that's what the buyers are searching for. But more importantly, what we're now seeing, and this is a conversation for another day, is the expectation of buyers when they visit a home has increased tenfold.
Substantially.
Painting, carpets, gardens, the overall presentation, the maintenance on your appliances, the big items like air conditioning and heating, everything now needs to be absolutely spot on at every price range through the market.
Yeah, and it just it comes in line with just that pure squeeze on where that end budget is for people. Buyers are definitely looking for that opportunity to walk in to a finished product with a little bit of certainty around what they're wanting. They want to avoid the fear of thinking that the hot water unit could blow up in 2 weeks, that the stove could go, oh, we've still got to paint and change these carpets. So delivering that end product to the highest possible achievable level when we are entering the market with a home is probably one of the key features, which again, not to waffle on too much with it because it is a detailed conversation for you if you are in that position and weighing up some options, but
certainly plan before
the
you
plan,
go to market.
which is what I was. So that rush to get in and make it happen definitely needs to be very calculated now.
Yeah. Now, I think you've got the stats. People are asking always what's happening with prices.
Yep.
We're probably averaging somewhere 15 to 20 price updates a week.
Yep.
So there's a lot of activity there. What is great is the stats around price movement. Have you got it? Or
No,
do I have it?
you've got the stats.
Oh,
Yep.
I've got it here. Okay, so for 2680, we're looking at, for the first half of this year, median price growth at 2.7%.
Wow.
So we haven't seen prices come back at all. We are seeing some movement still in a positive range. Interesting, if you've had a property for 3 years, median growth is at 40%.
Wow.
So if we go back 5 years, I think it's pushing 80.
Yeah,
And that's
wow.
again a conversation for another
Different day, yep.
So definitely price growth is still there and has been proven for 2023 so far.
Very true. So just to round up, there is plenty happening. We are having those conversations, and as always, we know that there's always people that are wanting to grab a little bit more of that extra information. We've definitely got that available to you, and of course, we're only ever a phone call away to answer any of your questions that you might have.
Now, I'm going to throw you under the bus.
Tell me.
What's your prediction for the second half of 23?
It's written on this one, and
You
I
tried to avoid
yeah, I tried to dodge it all the way through. I hate doing profs. So my prediction is this: with what I read and study in and around some of the economics and bits and pieces, my gut feeling is I don't have any indication that tells me there's going to be a massive amount of stock in existing property to come to the market, which will also help that price point hold. So while choice remains a little bit limited for buyers, we see 4 pop up, we think it's a lot. It's not.
Yep.
That I think there will be an avenue to actually hold. But what I do see potentially happening is buyers really making sure about what they're buying. So they're going to be very calculated on spending that upper threshold of pricing before committing to a deal, which does mean property time on market may extend.
Yeah. And look, we've recently spent a weekend with around about 4,000 agents up on the Gold Coast. We're listening to the stories there. So a couple of key takeaways in terms of what the second half of this year might bring. There's certainly going to be a lot of confusion, a lot of avoidance, and there is an increasing level of stress.
Yeah.
So if you are considering selling your property, what the recommendations were, probably come to the market earlier rather than later. Deal with the market you know now as opposed to what could happen. Interesting, I just read this morning in the paper that if you were earning around about 80 to 120,000 as a single or as a couple with an average mortgage, given the interest rate changes and what's happening in the labour market, you've effectively lost about $18,000 to $20,000 worth of income that's now been moved just to your mortgage.
Payments, yeah.
It's a huge shift. It's going to have an impact on lifestyle, and I think that's what will play out in the second part of this year, along with approximately 40% of home loans are fixed and due to expire in the next 3 to 6 months.
So in a nutshell, Nathan, just because we'll go tit for tat, I'll put you under the bus. What's that mean for the investor buyer as well?
For the investor buyer, I think now's the appropriate time to really take hold, have a look at where you're exposed in terms of your loans, sit down with your broker and try and get yourself a very clear plan for your repayments. If you've got a fantastic tenant, I think now is the time to really lock that tenant in, ensure that you've got someone who can pay the weekly rent, somebody who's keeping the property well. Now's a great opportunity to have a look at your maintenance. I would be taking a maintenance plan and forecasting what items you should be addressing over the next 1, 2 to 5 years. That's things like your gutters, your major appliances, your
painting,
your exterior.
Yep.
So all those things. And I do believe if you are an investor who is not heavily leveraged, opportunities over the next 12 to 18 months are certainly going to appear.
Absolutely. Well, there you are. There's our predictions. We'll see if they change in a month's time.
And we did predict at the start of this video it would be done in 5 minutes.
That's it from us.